The night air was cold enough to bite. Ilara Nix pulled her coat tighter around herself as she stepped out of the glass office building. The city of Nordhaven stretched before her, modern towers glowing against the dark sky, streets wet from earlier rain, traffic thinning as midnight approached. She checked the time on her phone and groaned. Of course, she muttered. Stay late to finish someone else's mess. Brilliant decision. Most of the shops in the district were already closed. Neon signs flickered. Streetlights hummed. The sidewalks were almost empty. Her footsteps echoed louder than usual, sharp against the quiet. She hated walking alone this late. Relax, she whispered to herself. You're not in a horror movie. Nothing dramatic is going to happen. A stray soda can rolled across the pavement, pushed by the wind. She jumped anyway. Okay, she breathed, maybe a little dramatic. She turned down a narrower street that cut toward her apartment. It was dimmer here. The buildings were older, shadows thicker between them. One streetlight ahead flickered on and off like it couldn't decide whether to live or die. That was when she saw him. He stood directly beneath the flickering light. Still, watching. At first, she thought he was just another man waiting for a ride. But something about him felt wrong. He wasn't leaning against anything. He wasn't checking a phone. He wasn't shifting his weight. He was simply standing. Perfectly still. The light flashed again, and for a split second she saw his face clearly. Sharp jaw. High cheekbones. Long black hair flowing past his shoulders, slightly moving in the wind. His coat was dark and heavy, almost blending into the night. But it was his eyes that made her slow down. Steel gray. Cold. Focused directly on her. Ilara swallowed. Don't panic, she whispered to herself. He's just a person. People exist. She kept walking, trying to appear confident. As she passed him, she forced a polite smile. Evening. He didn't smile back. Instead he spoke. You are mine. She stopped. Slowly, she turned her head toward him. I'm sorry, she said carefully. What? His expression did not change. His voice was calm. Certain. You are mine. Ilara blinked at him. Then she laughed. Oh wow, that's new. Is that a pickup line? Because if it is, you need a refund. He took one slow step toward her. The air around her seemed to tighten. You were meant for me, he said. Okay, she replied, holding up a hand. You have clearly mistaken me for someone else. I'm not meant for anyone. I barely have my life organized. Another step. Listen, she said quickly, backing up. I don't know what this is, but I'm really not interested in joining a cult tonight. The streetlight flickered again. He moved. 1 second he was 3 feet away. The next second he was directly in front of her. Ilara gasped and stumbled backward. How did you? She started. His hand wrapped around her wrist. Not painfully, but firmly. Cold skin. Strong grip. Let go, she snapped, pulling against him. I will scream. You may try, he said evenly. Her heart began pounding. She swung her bag at him. It hit his chest and bounced off like she had thrown it at stone. He didn't even blink. Are you kidding me? She shouted. Then he lifted her. Just like that. One arm under her legs. The other supporting her back. As if she weighed nothing. What the? Put me down, she yelled, kicking. This is illegal. This is kidnapping. I don't even know your name. He began walking. No, not walking. Moving. Fast. The city lights blurred as he carried her away from the streets, toward the darker edges of Nordhaven. The pavement became gravel. Gravel became dirt. Buildings gave way to trees. Cold wind whipped through her hair. Okay, she breathed shakily, this is officially the worst day of my life. The forest swallowed them. Tall black trees surrounded them, their branches twisting high above. The air felt older here. He didn't slow down. He moved through the woods like he knew every root and stone. After what felt like forever, the trees thinned. Ilara lifted her head. And froze. Before them rose something impossible. A massive fortress carved into the side of black cliffs. Towers rose into the night sky. Stone walls stretched high and wide. Torches burned along the battlements, their flames dancing in the wind. It looked ancient. Wild. Powerful. Please tell me that's not where we're going, she whispered. He did not answer. Large iron gates opened as they approached, as if expecting him. He carried her inside. The courtyard was vast. Stone beneath her. Guards in dark armor bowed their heads as he passed. They entered through enormous doors carved with symbols she did not understand. Inside, the air was warm from firelight. Long halls lined with stone pillars. Banners hanging high above. The place felt less like a house and more like a kingdom. Finally, he set her down in a large chamber. She stumbled but caught herself. "Okay," she said breathlessly, turning on him. "You need to explain. Right now." He stood before her fully now. Tall. Broad shoulders. Long black hair framing his face. Leather and fur armor beneath his coat. A black wolf fur cloak draped over him like a shadow. He looked like he belonged to another era. "I am Ragnar Valek," he said calmly. "King of Skeldrame." She stared at him. "Of course you are." He stepped closer. "You are my mate." "There it is again," she said, pointing at him. "That word. Mate. I'm not a wolf. I'm not a destiny package. I am just a regular human." "You are not regular," he replied. "I promise you I am." He studied her like she was something rare. "You were born for this place," he said. "For me?" She laughed, but it came out weaker this time. "You sound insane." Without another word, he moved behind her. Before she could react, something cool wrapped around her wrists. Rope. Not tight, but secure. She tested it. "Wow," she muttered. "Very dramatic." "You will not be harmed," he said. Comforting. He did not smile. Instead, he stepped back, watching her carefully. Defiance burned in her eyes. She lifted her chin. "You cannot just decide someone belongs to you." He held her gaze. "It is not my decision," he said quietly. "It is fate." She rolled her eyes. "I don't believe in fate." "You will." Silence stretched between them. The firelight flickered across his face, highlighting sharp lines and cold eyes that did not waver. She refused to look away. "I am not yours," she said firmly. His voice lowered. "You are." The tension in the room felt heavy enough to break. Finally, he turned toward the doorway. Guards remained outside. He paused at the threshold and looked back at her. His steel-gray eyes softened, just slightly. Then he whispered, "Fate does not make mistakes." And the door closed. Elara woke slowly. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed beneath her was softer than anything she had ever slept on. Heavy fur blankets covered her. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke and something colder, like stone after rain. Then memory returned all at once. The street. The man. The fortress carved into cliffs. Her eyes snapped open. The ceiling above her was high and arched, carved from dark stone. Thick curtains framed tall windows. Firelight flickered from a hearth across the room. The chamber looked ancient but rich, thick rugs, carved furniture, silver candlesticks. It was not a dungeon. That confused her. She pushed herself up quickly and looked down at her wrists. No ropes. No chains. She flexed her hands. Nothing restrained her. Her heart began to pound. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "If this is a trap, it's a very fancy one." She slid off the bed and moved toward the door carefully. It wasn't locked. She pulled it open slowly. The hallway beyond was empty. Stone floors. Tall pillars. Torches burning quietly in iron brackets. The place felt massive and strangely quiet, as if the walls were holding their breath. No guards. No voices. "This is either very stupid," she murmured, "or very confident." She took one step into the hall. Then another. No one stopped her. Her pulse quickened with hope. She followed the corridor until she found a wide staircase leading downward. The doors at the base were slightly open. Beyond them she could see gray light. Morning. She moved faster. Cold air hit her face as she slipped through the outer doors. The courtyard lay quiet, empty except for the wind. The massive gates that had opened the night before stood closed, but not fully latched. Her breath caught. "Thank you, dramatic villain with poor security," she whispered. She squeezed through the narrow opening and ran. The stone beneath her boots gave way to dirt. Dirt gave way to thick pine needles. Within seconds she was back in the forest. Only now it looked different. In daylight it should have felt safer. It didn't. The trees were tall and tightly packed. Their branches blocked much of the sky. The forest floor was uneven and damp. Mist clung low to the ground. She slowed slightly, trying to listen. There were no birds. No insects. No sound at all. The silence felt heavy. "This place is wrong," she muttered. She kept moving, pushing deeper into the trees, hoping to find a road. A path. Anything that led back toward the city. But the forest only grew darker. The air felt colder the farther she went. Then she felt it. That sense. Like something was watching her. She stopped. Slowly turned in a circle. Nothing. Just trees. Her breathing grew shallow. "Get it together," she whispered. "You're just paranoid." A low sound rolled through the forest. A growl. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Another growl answered from the opposite direction. Elara's stomach dropped. She turned sharply toward the sound. Between two trees she saw them. Yellow eyes. Low to the ground. Then another pair. And another. Shapes moved in the shadows. Large. Covered in dark fur. Wolf-like, but larger than any wolf she had ever seen. Their shoulders stood almost to her waist. Their teeth glinted as they stepped forward. Her throat went dry. "Nice wolves," she whispered, backing up slowly. "Very big. Very healthy. I'm sure you're not hungry." They spread out, forming a circle around her. She realized something terrible in that moment. She wasn't in the forest. She was inside it. And it was closing in. One of the creatures stepped closer. Its lips pulled back, revealing long, sharp fangs. Its eyes burned brighter. Elara grabbed a fallen branch from the ground and held it out in front of her like a weapon. "Okay," she breathed. "I will absolutely fight you if I have to. I won't win, but I will fight." The closest creature crouched, ready to spring. Her body froze. This was it. She was prey. A voice cut through the forest. "Stand down." The sound was calm, commanding, ancient. The creatures paused instantly. Elara turned. He stood several feet behind her. Ragnar Valak. His long black hair moved slightly in the wind. His steel-gray eyes were locked on the beasts. His expression was unreadable. The wolves lowered their heads. Another growl started, but it wasn't from them. It was from him. Oh, it. Warning. The creatures stepped back. One by one, they retreated into the shadows until the forest swallowed them completely. Silence returned. Elara stood there shaking. Slowly she turned toward him. "Please," she said weakly, "tell me those were trained pets." He walked toward her with slow, steady steps. They were not. What were they? Hunters. Her grip tightened on the branch. And I was what exactly? His gaze softened slightly. Their target. Anger flared through her fear. "You let me run. I knew they would come." Her eyes widened. "You knew?" He stopped a few feet away. "Yes." Her voice rose. "You could have told me. You would not have believed me." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He wasn't wrong. He studied her carefully. "I am not human," he said quietly. She let out a short, shaky laugh. "That part one figured out when you moved like a glitch in reality." "I am a vampire," he continued, "and not merely one of many. I am king of this territory." She stared at him. "You expect me to accept that calmly? I expect you to understand the danger you are in." She shook her head. "This is insane. It is real." He stepped closer, but not threateningly. "There are creatures older than cities in these forests," he said. "They can sense you." "Why me?" she demanded. "Because of what you are. I am a marketing assistant." His lips almost twitched. "You carry dormant power," he said. "A rare energy that draws attention." She crossed her arms. "No. I refuse that explanation. I don't have hidden magic powers. You do not know yourself yet." "Stop," she snapped. "Stop talking about fate and destiny like I signed a contract." The forest seemed darker now, colder. Another distant growl echoed faintly. Her bravado weakened. Ragnar watched her carefully. "You are safer beside me than anywhere in this world," he said. She looked around. The trees suddenly felt too close. The shadows too deep. "I hate that you might be right," she muttered. He extended his hand, not forcefully, simply offering. She hesitated. Then, slowly she placed her hand in his. His skin was cool, steady, strong. He did not grip her tightly this time. They walked back through the forest together. As the fortress walls came into view again, Elara glanced at him from the corner of her eye. She still didn't trust him. She still didn't believe in destiny. But one thing had changed. For the first time since meeting him, she did not feel like he was the most dangerous thing in her world. And that frightened her even more. Elara had not expected a vampire fortress to smell like burnt meat. She followed the sharp scent down the stone corridor, her nose wrinkling. Smoke curled faintly in the air, and for a moment she wondered if Skeldraim was under attack again. Then she heard a quiet clatter. Metal against stone. She stepped into a wide kitchen chamber and froze. Ragnar Valak stood in front of a large iron stove, staring down at a pan that was very clearly on fire. Not slightly smoking. Actually on fire. Flames flickered up from the pan, licking toward the ceiling. A towel lay nearby, half singed. Ragnar held a wooden spoon in one hand, as if unsure whether to fight the fire or negotiate with it. Elara blinked. "Is this a ritual?" she asked carefully, "or are you attempting to cook?" He glanced at her. His expression remained calm, but she could see tension in his jaw. "I am preparing food for you." She looked back at the flames. With what appears to be a small explosion. He turned off the heat quickly and smothered the pan with a lid. The fire died down with a hiss of smoke. Silence followed. She pressed her lips together. Then she laughed. She tried not to. She failed. "Forgive me," she said between breaths, leaning against the counter. I did not expect the powerful vampire king to be defeated by a stove." His eyes narrowed slightly. "I have not needed to cook for myself in centuries. That explains a lot." He set the ruined pan aside, his movements controlled but clearly frustrated. "I was told humans require food regularly," he said. "I intended to provide it." She raised an eyebrow. "That is very generous of you. Next time, maybe do not try to cremate it." A faint spark of amusement crossed his face. "You are mocking me." "Yes," she replied brightly. "I am." He crossed his arms, watching her. "Then perhaps you would prefer to take control." She hesitated. "You want me to cook? If you believe you can manage fire better than I." She smirked. "Step aside, Your Majesty." He moved without argument. Elara inspected the ingredients laid out on the counter. Meat, vegetables, oil. She picked up the bottle and shook her head. "You poured too much oil." He tilted his head. "I believed more would improve the result." "That is not how that works." She adjusted the stove properly, explaining each step with exaggerated seriousness. He stood beside her, silent but attentive. She felt his gaze on her often. Not uncomfortable. Just intense. "So," she said casually as she flipped the meat, "how old are you?" He did not answer immediately. "Older than your country," he said at last. She paused. "That is not a number. I was born when kingdoms were carved from snow and blood." She blinked. "Okay, dramatic. But seriously." He leaned slightly against the counter. "Centuries," he said. "More than 5. She stared at him. "You do not look a day over 30. "I do not age as you do." She turned back to the pan. "That must get exhausting. Watching everything change while you remain the same." His silence stretched longer this time. "I have led wars," he said quietly. "I have buried armies. I have watched alliances break and cities burn." She glanced at him over her shoulder. "Is that why you act like the world is constantly disappointing you?" A small breath left him that might have been a laugh. "The world is often disappointing." She plated the food and carried it to the long stone table in the center of the kitchen. They sat across from one another. He picked up a fork carefully, studying it as if it were unfamiliar. "Have you truly never eaten human food before?" she asked. "Rarely." "Well, if you collapse, I will assume it is an allergic reaction." He cut into the meat and took a bite. He chewed slowly. She leaned forward. "Well?" He considered. "It is acceptable." She rolled her eyes. "Acceptable? That is all I get." "It is good," he corrected calmly. She smiled despite herself. "See? That was not so hard." Silence settled between them again, but it felt different now. Warmer. Less sharp. "You did not have to do this," she said after a moment. "Do what?" "Try to cook for me." His gaze met hers. "I wish to show you that I am not indifferent to your comfort." Her teasing expression softened slightly. "You almost burned down your fortress to impress me?" "Yes." She blinked. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. "I do not know how to navigate human customs," he continued. "But I am trying." Her heart shifted in her chest. "You are the most powerful creature in this territory," she said quietly. "And you are worried about cooking dinner." His steel-gray eyes held hers. "You matter." The words landed heavier than she expected. She looked down at her plate quickly. "That is intense." He stood slowly. He walked around the table. Stopped in front of her. The firelight flickered across his face, casting shadows along his sharp jawline. Her pulse quickened. "You unsettle me," he said. "Good," she replied lightly, though her voice felt thinner. "I enjoy being disruptive." His hand lifted slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. His touch was cool. Careful. Her breath caught. "You are unlike anyone I have known," he murmured. The air between them felt charged. He leaned closer. Not aggressively. Not forcefully. Just slowly. Her heart pounded. She should step back. She knew she should. But she did not move. His eyes flickered down to her lips. Her body reacted before her mind could protest. The space between them narrowed to nothing. Then, he stopped. His jaw tightened. He stepped back abruptly as if pulling himself away from something dangerous. "Forgive me," he said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "I should not assume your consent." The moment shattered. Reality rushed back in. "Yes," she said quickly, standing up. "Correct. Good decision." He nodded once. "I will not cross that boundary." She folded her arms, trying to steady herself. "Right. Boundaries. Very important." Silence filled the kitchen again. But it was different now. Thicker. He gathered the dishes calmly as if nothing had happened. She retreated toward the doorway. "Good night," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "Good night, Elara." She walked back to her chamber, closing the heavy door behind her. Then she leaned against it. Her hand lifted slowly to her lips. "What was that?" she whispered. Her heart was still racing. Across the fortress, Ragnar stood alone in the dim kitchen. His fists clenched slightly at his sides. He had faced battlefields without hesitation. Yet standing that close to her had unsettled him more than any war. Later that night they both lay awake in separate rooms. Elara stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment in her mind. Ragnar stood by his window, staring at the frozen cliffs beyond Skeldrime. Neither slept easily. Neither spoke of it. But something had shifted between fire and ice. Elara had been staring at the same crack in the stone wall for 10 minutes. If she had to count one more line in the ceiling above her bed, she was going to lose her mind. Yes, the fortress was impressive. Yes, the furs were soft. Yes, the food was no longer on fire. But she was still not free. She sat up abruptly. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. The forest attack was probably staged. Dramatic wolves on cue. Very convincing. Very theatrical. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. Ragnar had known they would come. He had appeared at the perfect moment. It felt suspiciously convenient. "He scared me on purpose," she said, pacing. "Of course he did. Keep the human frightened and she won't run." Her jaw tightened. "No. I am not staying here because of special effects." This time she would be prepared. She marched down the corridor toward the lower levels of the fortress. Servants passed her but did not stop her. Guards stood at distant posts but none blocked her path. That annoyed her even more. "So confident," she muttered. "You think I won't try again?" In a storage chamber near the kitchens, she found a basket of garlic bulbs hanging from a hook. She grabbed several and stuffed them into her coat pocket. "If movies have taught me anything," she whispered, "it's that this should do something." She continued searching and found an old wooden broom leaning against a wall. With determination, she snapped the handle against the stone floor until it cracked. It wasn't elegant, but it had a sharp point. She examined it proudly. Very intimidating. On her way back through a side corridor, she spotted a small shelf lined with old relics. Silver crosses, carved talismans, small vials of what looked like holy water. She grabbed one, slipping it into her pocket. "There," she breathed. "Maximum protection." Late that night, when the fortress grew quiet and the torches burned low, she made her move. She slipped out of her chamber, clutching the wooden stake in one hand and garlic in the other. Her boots made almost no sound against the stone floor. The air felt colder at night. More watchful. She ignored the uneasy feeling in her stomach. "I am not scared," she whispered. She moved through the courtyard, keeping to the shadows. The massive gate stood closed, but she knew there was a smaller side passage used by guards. Freedom was only a few steps away. She had almost reached the archway when a voice echoed behind her. "Going somewhere?" Her heart stopped. She slowly turned. Ragnar stood at the far end of the courtyard, moonlight outlining his tall frame. His long black hair shifted in the night wind. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. She lifted the garlic immediately, holding it out like a shield. "Stay back." He looked at it. Silence passed. Then he raised one eyebrow. "Garlic." "It works," she said quickly. "Do not test me." He stepped forward. Nothing happened. She blinked. He stepped closer. Still nothing. Her confidence wavered. "That is disappointing," he said evenly. She scowled and raised the wooden stake. "Fine. Plan B." He was in front of her before she could react. His hand wrapped around her wrist. Not painfully but firmly. The stake fell from her grip and clattered against the stone. "Are you serious?" she snapped. "You are reckless," he replied. I am escaping. You are endangering yourself. I decide what is dangerous. In one swift motion, he spun her gently but decisively, pressing her back against the cold stone wall. His arms braced on either side of her, caging her in without fully touching her. Her breath caught. The proximity stole it. His face was inches from hers. You belong here, he said quietly. Her pulse pounded in her ears. I belong nowhere I did not choose, she shot back. His gaze darkened. You are mine. Stop saying that. It is truth. It is control. His jaw tightened. It is fate. She lifted her chin stubbornly. I do not believe in fate. He leaned closer, his voice lowering. Destiny is older than your disbelief. Her breath hitched at the intensity in his eyes. You do not get to decide my life, she said, though her voice trembled slightly. For a long moment, neither moved. Then something changed in his expression. The sharp edge softened. I do not wish to cage you, he said quietly. Then do not. His hand shifted slightly, not gripping her, just resting against the wall beside her shoulder. You think I frighten you into staying, he said. You think I exaggerate the danger. She held his gaze. Yes. A shadow passed across his face. I have ruled these lands for centuries, he said. I have seen what hunts in those forests. And I have buried those who underestimated it. Her anger faltered. I would not survive losing you, he admitted. The words stunned her. You barely know me. I know enough. His steel-gray eyes held something she had not seen before. Not dominance. Fear. If you run again, he said quietly, I will have no choice but to keep you closer. Her stomach flipped. Closer how? His voice dropped. Where I can see you. At all times. Her breath hitched. That is not romantic, she whispered. It is survival. Silence stretched between them. She searched his face. There was no cruelty there. No amusement. Only fierce determination, and something raw beneath it. You are afraid, she realized softly. His jaw tightened. I do not fear easily. But you fear losing me. He did not deny it. The admission hung between them like fragile glass. Her heart wavered. She should hate this. She should be furious. Instead, confusion flooded her. He slowly stepped back, giving her space. If you attempt to leave again without protection, he said calmly, I will not permit such freedom. She folded her arms, trying to rebuild her defenses. You cannot lock me in a tower. I can. That is terrifying. Yes. He bent to pick up the fallen wooden stake. He examined its uneven point with faint amusement. This would not have harmed me. I was improvising. You require better weapons. She stared at him. Are you offering to help me fight you? I am offering to keep you alive. The wind swept through the courtyard, carrying the distant howl of something in the forest. Elara glanced toward the dark trees beyond the gates. Her confidence felt thinner now. Ragnar stepped closer again, but not to trap her. To walk beside you, he said quietly. She hesitated. Then, reluctantly, she allowed him to guide her back toward the fortress doors. He did not touch her this time. He simply walked beside her. At the threshold she paused. You cannot own me, she said softly. He looked down at her. I do not wish to own you, he replied. I wish to protect what fate has given me. She shook her head. Stop saying fate. He almost smiled. I will try. She entered the fortress, her heart unsteady. As she lay in her bed later that night, she stared at the ceiling once more. Her anger remained. Her independence remained. But beneath it, something else had taken root. A dangerous question. What if he was not exaggerating? And what if the thing that scared her most was not the forest, but the way her heart reacted when he admitted he feared losing her? The fortress had many corridors. Some were warm and bright, filled with firelight and quiet movement. Others were colder, quieter, as if they had been forgotten. Elara had begun to notice that certain doors were always closed, certain hallways always guarded. That alone made her curious. I am not snooping, she muttered one afternoon as she slipped down a narrow stone passage. I am gathering information. The wing she entered felt different from the rest of Skeldrame. The torches burned lower. The air was colder. The walls were lined with shields and old weapons, swords scarred by battle, axes stained dark at their edges. The further she walked, the heavier the silence became. At the end of the corridor stood a tall wooden door carved with intricate symbols. It was slightly open. She hesitated, then pushed it wider. The room beyond was vast. It was not a bedroom, not a dining hall. It was something else entirely. Maps covered one wall, pinned and marked with ink in red lines. A long table stood in the center of the chamber, its surface scratched and worn. Armor pieces rested on stands along the sides. Old banners hung from the ceiling, their colors faded with age. This was not just a chamber. It was a war room. Elara stepped inside slowly. On a heavy desk near the back of the room lay an old leather-bound journal. It was open as if recently read. She stared at it. Her better judgment whispered for her to leave. Her curiosity won. She approached the desk and lifted the journal carefully. The handwriting was bold and controlled, each line deliberate. She began to read. The early entries described alliances between clans, trade agreements, border disputes, names she did not recognize. Then the tone shifted. Her eyes moved more slowly. A meeting arranged under truce. A rival blood clan promising unity. An ambush. She swallowed. The next entry described a massacre. His parents, king and queen before him, had been betrayed during what was meant to be a peace negotiation. Surrounded, outnumbered, slaughtered. Her chest tightened as she continued reading. Ragnar had not been present at the meeting. He had arrived too late. He had found their bodies. The ink on that page pressed harder into the paper as if carved with anger. She turned the page. The entries that followed were darker. He had gathered forces. He had declared vengeance. For years he led war against the clan that betrayed them. Fortress after fortress had fallen. Blood answered blood. Fire answered fire. She read descriptions of battles so brutal she felt her stomach twist. Entire armies destroyed. Territories burned to ash. She paused, her fingers tightening around the edge of the page. He had not written with pride. He had written with weight. Another entry stopped her breath. He called himself a monster. Not because he killed, but because he could not stop. Even after the rival clan was nearly destroyed, he continued hunting those who survived. Not for strategy. For rage. Elara closed the journal halfway, staring down at it. So you were not just born cold, she murmured softly. You were carved into it. The sound of the door closing behind her made her jump. She turned slowly. Ragnar stood there. His expression was unreadable. His steel-gray eyes dropped immediately to the journal in her hands. You should not be here, he said quietly. She stiffened. And you should not leave dramatic diaries on desks, she replied, though her voice lacked its usual sharpness. He walked toward the desk, each step measured. Curiosity is dangerous. So is ignorance. He stopped across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. You read it, he said. Yes. He did not look angry. He looked tired. You know about the betrayal, she continued carefully. I do. You know about the war. I do. And you feel guilty. His jaw tightened slightly. I feel responsible. She placed the journal back on the desk. You were avenging your parents. I was indulging my fury. Silence filled the chamber. I lost control, he said quietly. I told myself it was justice. But it became something else. She studied him. You ruled for centuries, she said slowly. And you did it alone. His gaze lifted to hers. Yes. Why? Trust is fragile. And you decided it was not worth risking again? I decided I would not endure that loss twice. The words carried more weight than he likely intended. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. You could have rebuilt alliances, she said gently. I did. Politically. But not personally. He did not answer. The room felt colder now. You think I am only violence, he said at last. She hesitated. I thought you were. And now? She looked at the war maps lining the walls. The old armor. The faded banners. You are more complicated than I expected. A faint shadow of something passed through his eyes. I did not want you to see that part of me, he admitted. Why? Because it makes me less worthy of you. The words caught her off guard. Less worthy? You deserve strength, he said. Not a king haunted by old blood. She stared at him. You think strength means never feeling anything? It should. No, she said quietly. That is just loneliness. He did not argue. Instead, he stepped closer. His presence felt different in this room. Less dominant. More human. You are the first person in centuries who has stood here and spoken to me without fear, he said. I was afraid, she admitted. Just not of you. His gaze sharpened slightly. What then? Of becoming trapped in something I do not understand. He absorbed that. I do not wish to trap you, he said. You keep saying that. And yet you remain. She looked at him carefully. I remain because leaving felt worse. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. You feel it too, he said softly. Feel what? That this is not accident. She rolled her eyes lightly. Do not turn this into destiny. A faint hint of amusement touched his lips. I will refrain. Silence returned, but it was not tense. It was heavy with something else. He reached out slowly, not to grab her, not to control her, but simply to touch her hand. His fingers brushed hers. You are my strength, he said quietly. Her breath caught. That is a lot of responsibility. It is truth. She searched his face for arrogance. Found none. Only sincerity. For the first time since she had met him, she did not see a monster. She saw a man shaped by grief. A ruler hardened by betrayal. A warrior who had buried too much. You are not just what you did, she said softly. His gaze did not waver. And you are not as ordinary as you pretend. She withdrew her hand gently. Do not start that again. A faint, almost reluctant smile touched his face. As you wish. She moved toward the door, pausing once at the threshold. I still do not trust you completely, she admitted. I do not expect you to. But I do not think you are a monster. His expression shifted, subtle but real. Thank you. She left the chamber quietly. As she walked back through the corridors, her thoughts felt heavier. She had entered that room expecting to confirm her fear. Instead, she had found something else. Not innocence. Not purity. But pain. And for the first time, she understood that Ragnar Valek was not simply a creature of the dark. He was a king built from loss. And that realization unsettled her more than any growl in the forest ever had. Elara knew something was wrong the moment Ragnar entered her chamber. He did not knock. He rarely needed to. But today he moved with purpose, his shoulders tight, his face calm in the way storms were calm, quiet, controlled, and dangerous underneath. You will come with me, he said. Elara sat up from where she had been pretending to read a thick old book. She was not actually reading. Mostly she was staring at the same paragraph and thinking about everything she did not understand. I'm sorry, she said, blinking. What? The council is meeting, Ragnar replied. They will see you. She stared at him. They will what? They will understand, he said as if it were simple. You are not a guest. You are not a temporary curiosity. You are mine. Elara groaned. There it is again. That sentence. You say it like it's a law of nature. It is, he said flatly. She swung her legs off the bed. So let me get this straight, she said, pointing at him. You want to parade me in front of a room full of ancient vampires so they can judge your taste in women and decide if I'm edible. No one will touch you, he said. That is not comforting when you say it like you've had to tell people that before. Ragnar did not respond. He only watched her waiting. Elara sighed and stood. Fine, she muttered. But if someone tries to bite me, I'm blaming you. Ragnar turned and she followed him out. The corridors leading to the council hall were different from the rest of Skeldrime. The torches burned brighter. The stone walls were carved with symbols and scenes of battles. The air felt heavier, almost charged, like a room full of people could feel you before you arrived. Elara's stomach tightened. Do they hate humans? She whispered. Ragnar did not look at her. They do not trust what they cannot control. Great, she murmured. So they'll love me. They reached a set of massive double doors. 2 guards stood on either side in dark armor. They lowered their heads when Ragnar approached and pulled the doors open. The council hall was enormous. High ceiling. Stone pillars. Long tables shaped like a jagged blade. Red banners hung from above, an old torchlight painted the room in shifting shadows. Vampires sat along both sides of the table, men and women with faces too calm, eyes too sharp, and stillness that felt unnatural. Every gaze turned toward Elara. She felt it like pressure on her skin. Ragnar stepped forward, his presence instantly commanding. Elara stayed half a step behind him, refusing to shrink, even as her nerves tried to pull her backward. An older vampire with silver hair leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. You brought a human into Skeldrime, he said. His voice carried authority and disapproval. Have you lost your mind, Ragnar? Murmurs spread through the room. Another vampire smiled coldly. A human, he repeated as if it tasted bad in his mouth. In the Obsidian Keep. Ragnar's voice remained steady. This is Elara Nyx, he said. My mate. The room shifted. Some leaned forward. Some leaned back. Several exchanged looks. A man seated near the head of the table lifted his chin slightly, calm and watchful. And what does the king expect us to do with this information? The man asked. Ragnar did not flinch. Accept it. Elara fought the urge to roll her eyes. She kept her expression neutral, even as her heart hammered. Lord Severin Morvain sat a few seats down, draped in dark fabric that looked expensive and sharp like him. His face was handsome in a cruel way. His eyes were pale, almost icy. He smiled slowly. So this is the girl, Severin said. The fragile little human. Elara's jaw tightened. Severin's gaze moved over her like she was a piece of property. She doesn't look like much, he continued, voice dripping with amusement. Is this truly what you've chosen to weaken yourself with? Elara's hands clenched. Ragnar's posture did not change, but something in the air shifted. Severin leaned back lazily. I would have expected more, he said. If she is so important. Humans break easily, Ragnar. They scream. They bleed. They die. Elara could not stop herself. Oh, sorry, she said brightly. I couldn't hear you over the sound of your ego echoing around the room. The hall went quiet. Severin's smile widened, but his eyes sharpened. Feisty, he said. I wonder how long that lasts. Ragnar's hand moved slightly behind her, as if warning her to stay still. But Elara refused to lower her head. The older council member spoke again. This is a liability, he said. You know that. The clans will smell weakness. I am not weak, Elara snapped, unable to hold it in. The council member's eyes flicked to her. You are human, he said simply. That is the same thing. Anger rose hot in her chest. Before she could speak, Ragnar moved. 1 second he stood beside her. The next he was across the hall. The council member who had spoken was lifted off his chair and slammed against the stone wall with a violent force that rattled the torches. Gasps spread through the room. Ragnar held the vampire by the throat, arm locked, his steel-gray eyes now glowing with something darker. Say it again, Ragnar growled. Say she is weak again. The council member struggled, hands gripping Ragnar's arm. Ragnar, another voice snapped. Enough. Severin's eyes lit with interest, like he was enjoying the show. Your control is slipping, he said softly. Because of her. Ragnar did not look away from the council member pinned to the wall. She is not a liability, Ragnar said, voice low and deadly. She is my strength. The hall was silent except for the strained breathing of the vampire Ragnar held. Then Ragnar released him. The council member dropped to the floor, coughing, eyes wide with humiliation. Ragnar turned slowly, walking back to Elara with controlled steps. His expression had returned to calm, but the tension remained in his shoulders. He stood in front of her like a shield. His voice rose just enough for everyone to hear. She is under my protection, he said. And more than that, she will be my queen. Elara's breath caught. Queen. The word landed like a stone in her stomach. The council erupted in low murmurs. Severin's smile vanished. The older council member at the head of the table leaned forward again, his tone firm. You make declarations as if there will be no consequences, he said. If she proves to be a weakness, if she draws enemies here, the cost will fall on you, Ragnar Valek. Ragnar's gaze did not waver. Then I will pay it. Severin's voice cut through the hall, smooth and sharp. And when war comes, he said quietly, do not expect us to spill blood for a human. Ragnar's eyes narrowed. You will spill blood, he said, if you want to remain in my territory. The threat was clear. The council head exhaled slowly as if tasting the future. Very well, he said. You have made your choice. But remember, Skeldreim survives through strength. Not sentiment. Ragnar's hand reached back and closed around Elara's wrist, firm but not painful. Come, he said. Elara let him lead her out, her mind spinning. As the doors shut behind them, she finally breathed again. They walked down the corridor in silence. Then Elara spoke, voice shaking slightly with anger she couldn't place. You didn't have to do that. Yes, Ragnar said. I did. I can defend myself. I know. Then why? He stopped and looked down at her. His expression softened just enough to make her chest tighten. Because I will not let them treat you as less, he said quietly. Elara swallowed. His fury had been terrifying. But it had also been protective. And she hated that a part of her felt safer because of it. As they continued walking, the fortress around them seemed colder again. Not because of the stone. Because she could feel it now, politics shifting, eyes watching, power tightening like a rope. The council had not accepted her. They had only tolerated her. And somewhere within those ancient walls, war was beginning to breathe. The first sign was the sound. Not a growl. Not a whisper. Steel. Steel striking steel. Ilara was standing near one of the high windows of the great hall when the fortress shook with a heavy impact. A second later, shouting echoed through the corridors. Boots thundered against stone. Torches flickered violently as if the air itself had been disturbed. Her heart jumped into her throat. "What is happening?" she breathed. Before anyone could answer, the massive doors at the far end of the hall burst open. Vampires flooded inside. Not Ragnar's guards. Strangers. Dark armor. Cruel eyes. Blades already stained. The air filled with the metallic scent of blood almost instantly. Ragnar appeared at her side without warning, his body moving in front of hers like a wall. "Stay behind me," he ordered. The calm in his voice made the chaos feel sharper. The rival clan moved with precision, cutting down guards who tried to block them. The hall became a battlefield in seconds. Swords clashed. Stone cracked under the force of bodies thrown against it. At the center of the invasion walked Lord Severin Morvain. Unhurried. Smiling. "So dramatic," Severin said, his voice carrying over the violence. "All this protection for one fragile human." Ragnar stepped forward, his shoulders tense. "You dare enter my hall," Ragnar said coldly. Severin tilted his head. "I do more than dare." His pale eyes shifted to Ilara. "And this must be her." Ilara felt the weight of his stare like ice against her skin. Severin's smile widened. "You truly did not tell her?" he asked Ragnar lightly. "Tell me what?" Ilara demanded, stepping out slightly despite Ragnar's warning hand. Severin laughed softly. "How unfortunate," he said. "You brought her into your kingdom without honesty." Ragnar's voice sharpened. "Enough." "Oh no," Severin continued, ignoring him. "She deserves to know." Ilara's pulse pounded in her ears. "Know what?" Severin's eyes locked onto hers. "Your parents," he said smoothly, "were not innocent civilians." Her stomach dropped. "They were elite vampire hunters." The word struck like a physical blow. "That is a lie," she said instantly. Severin shrugged. "They hunted our kind for years. Kill. Ruthless. Efficient." Ilara shook her head. "My parents were normal." "They were. They were trained assassins," Severin cut in. "And they attempted to kill your king." Her breath caught. The hall seemed to tilt. She turned slowly toward Ragnar. His expression did not change. He did not deny it. Her voice trembled. "Is he lying?" Silence. Ragnar's jaw tightened. "No." The world narrowed to a single point. "They came for me," Ragnar said quietly. "They believed I was a threat to their kind." Her vision blurred. "They tried to assassinate you?" she whispered. "Yes." "And what happened?" Severin's voice slid back in, smooth and cruel. "He killed them." Ilara's chest felt hollow. Ragnar's eyes flickered with something heavy. "It was self-defense," he said. "They would have killed me." But she barely heard him. "You killed them?" she repeated faintly. Before the moment could stretch further, Severin lunged. Chaos exploded again. Ragnar moved instantly, intercepting Severin's strike. Their blades collided with a force that sent sparks across the stone floor. Around them, the battle intensified. Ilara stumbled backward as two rival vampires rushed past her. One broke through the line of guards and turned toward her with a predatory grin. Fear paralyzed her for a split second. Then Ragnar was there. He moved faster than she could follow, slamming into the attacker with brutal force. The rival vampire hit a pillar hard enough to crack stone. "Do not touch her," Ragnar growled. Another blade sliced across Ragnar's side from behind. Ilara screamed. Blood stained his dark armor. He staggered slightly but did not fall. Severin took advantage, driving forward with another strike. Their movements blurred, strength against strength, fury against fury. Ilara pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding wildly as she watched them fight. This was not political tension. This was war. Severin's voice cut through the clash. "You protect the daughter of those who hunted us," he taunted. "How poetic." Ragnar's eyes flashed. "I protect what is mine." Their blades locked. Then Ragnar shifted his weight and slammed Severin backward across the hall. Stone shattered under the impact. Severin rose again, blood trickling from his lip, smiling even wider. "Does she know how many of ours her family slaughtered?" he asked lightly. "Stop." Ilara shouted, tears burning her eyes. But neither of them heard her. Severin rushed forward again, and this time Ragnar did not hold back. He struck with terrifying precision. A punch that cracked bone. A blade that tore through armor. A kick that sent Severin crashing into the long council table, splintering it in half. The rival clan began retreating as their leader fell to one knee. Ragnar advanced slowly. There was no mercy in his face now, only judgment. Severin tried to rise. Ragnar seized him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "This ends," Ragnar said quietly. With one final brutal motion he struck. Severin's body fell lifeless to the stone floor. The remaining attackers fled. Silence crashed down over the great hall. Broken pillars. Blood across the floor. Fallen bodies. Elara ran forward. Ragnar swayed slightly before she reached him. "You are bleeding," she whispered. He looked down at her as if he had forgotten his own injuries. "Are you hurt?" he asked instead. She shook her head, tears spilling freely now. He collapsed to one knee. She caught him as best she could, her hands pressing against the wound at his side. Warm blood soaked through her fingers. "You are an idiot," she whispered shakily. He gave a faint, exhausted smile. "I have been called worse." Her vision blurred again, but not from fear this time. "You killed them," she said, her voice breaking. Ragnar's gaze darkened with regret. "They would have killed me. That does not change it." He did not argue. He did not defend himself further. He only held her gaze, accepting the pain in it. Around them, guards began clearing the hall. The war had ended for now, but the damage lingered in the air. Elara supported Ragnar as healers rushed forward. Her hands trembled, stained red. Her mind replayed Severin's words. Hunter's daughter. Assassins. Bloodline. The man she had slowly begun to understand. Had killed her parents. She knelt beside him as the healers worked, her heart fractured in ways she did not know how to mend. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "You killed them?" The fortress had not yet healed from the last attack when the second blow came. It happened at dusk. Elara was in the courtyard when she heard shouting from the outer gate. Guards rushed past her. Torches flared. Steel rang out again. Her stomach dropped. "Not again," she whispered. She ran toward the noise despite knowing she should not. By the time she reached the lower wall, it was already too late. Ragnar stood outside the gate with a small unit of warriors, confronting a handful of rival remnants who had crept back into the territory. It looked small. Manageable. Then the trap sprung. Hidden figures emerged from the shadows. Chains flashed in the fading light, silver chains etched with strange symbols. They wrapped around Ragnar before he could fully react. He roared, struggling, but the metal burned against his skin. Smoke rose where it touched him. "Elara, go back," he shouted. She froze. Torin Kale lunged forward, cutting down two attackers, but there were too many. The enchanted silver tightened, forcing Ragnar to his knees. The rival vampires did not try to kill him. They dragged him. "Elara." Torin barked. Inside. But she could not move. She watched as they hauled Ragnar toward the forest, his movements growing weaker with each step. Then he disappeared into the trees. Silence followed. Torin turned toward her, jaw tight. "They will not kill him immediately," he said. "They will make an example of him." Her chest felt hollow. "How long?" she asked. "Not long." She swallowed. "Then we are not waiting." Torin's eyes narrowed. "We." She met his stare steadily. "I am going. You are human. And he is chained in silver because of me." Torin hesitated. Then he nodded once. "Fine. But you follow my lead." Night fell quickly as they moved through the forest. Torin knew the terrain better than she did, cutting a path through the trees with silent precision. Ahead, dim torchlight flickered through the darkness. The enemy stronghold. It was smaller than Skeldreim but fortified, wooden barricades reinforced with iron. Guards patrolled the outer ring. Elara's heart pounded wildly. "You can still turn back," Torin murmured. She shook her head. "Not an option." They circled to the rear, where a narrow gap between the rock face and the wall created a blind spot. Torin motioned for silence. They slipped inside. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Voices echoed from the central structure. Elara's hands trembled, but she forced herself to move. They found him in a lower chamber. Chained upright against a wooden beam, silver wrapped tight around his wrists and chest. His head hung forward. Blood darkened his shirt. "Elara," he rasped weakly when he sensed her. She rushed forward, ignoring the sting of fear. "Do not speak," she whispered, fighting tears. Torin kept watch at the doorway as she examined the chains. The silver glowed faintly with runes. "How do I unlock this?" she hissed. "There is a catch beneath the third link," Ragnar murmured faintly. She found it and pressed down. The first chain fell away. Smoke curled from his skin as the silver loosened. Hurry! Shouts erupted from outside. They had been discovered. Torin stepped into the doorway, blade flashing as the first guard charged in. Elara worked frantically at the remaining locks. Hurry, Torin growled. The final chain snapped free. Ragnar sagged forward and she caught him against her shoulder. You came, he breathed. Of course I did, she whispered fiercely. A guard lunged toward them. Without thinking, Elara grabbed a fallen torch and swung it hard into the attacker's face. He fell back with a snarl. Ragnar straightened slowly, pain in every movement, but fury stronger. You should not have come, he said quietly. And leave you, she snapped. Not happening. The chamber filled with enemies. Ragnar moved despite the burns on his skin. His strikes were slower than usual but still lethal. Torin fought beside him with relentless focus. Elara stayed close, ducking behind them, striking when she could, refusing to freeze. They pushed toward the exit. The night air hit them as they broke through the outer ring. Torin cleared the path ahead. Ragnar faltered slightly and Elara caught him again. I have you, she said. He looked down at her, something raw in his eyes. You risked your life. So did you. They did not stop until the dark outline of Skeldrame rose before them again. The gates opened quickly as guards rushed forward to assist. Healers moved toward Ragnar, but he brushed them aside long enough to look at her. You should not have risked yourself, he said quietly. You do not get to decide that. They stood in silence for a moment. Then he leaned down. This time there was no hesitation. His lips met hers with desperate intensity, heat and relief and something far deeper than possession. For a heartbeat she froze. Then she kissed him back. Not because of fate. Not because he claimed her. But because she wanted to. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Back inside the fortress, Ragnar did something she did not expect. He stepped away. 4 days after, he kept his distance. He healed quickly, but he did not approach her as he had before. He did not claim. Did not insist. Did not corner her in halls. He gave her space. The silence unsettled her more than his intensity ever had. Finally she found him in the war chamber. You are avoiding me, she said. He did not deny it. You deserve freedom to decide, he replied. Without pressure. She folded her arms. Good. He waited. She stepped closer. If I stay, she said clearly, there are conditions. His eyes focused on her fully. No possession language. He nodded. No cages. Yes. And no decisions made for me without my consent. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded again. Partnership, she finished. Not ownership. He stepped forward slowly. I will earn your trust, he said quietly. Not demand it. Silence stretched between them. She studied him carefully. The powerful king who could command armies. The warrior who had fought for her. The man who had killed her parents in a war she did not understand. He was not simple. Neither was she. You do not get me because of fate, she said softly. His voice lowered. Then why? She held his gaze steadily. This time, she said, her heart steady despite the storm around them, I choose you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more interesting stories.